Do whatever you want to do within the next 45 minutes. The stage is yours.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's not an easy job for me today because yesterday there were so many great sessions with nice visuals, and I'm talking today more about well, the core concepts. But I'll do my best. So the first difficult point is sharing the screen. Main reason why this is difficult is if you're in Zoom and you want to click on Start Slideshow, then that button is hidden under the Zoom controls. But after 8 months of lockdown, I'm used to it. So we're going to talk about how to move, how JavaFX is moving forward. Let me see. I'll try to open the chat here so that I can read some of the things. I will probably give an agenda. Yeah. I will first give a brief status overview. Where are we today with JavaFX? What are the plans? And then I have hopefully plenty of time for questions. There were some questions that have been sent to me via Twitter or via mail, and I will I numbered a number of them on my last slide, so I will talk about those near the end of the presentation or in the second half or the third of the presentation. And then I will also try to answer questions or discussions from that are raised via the chat. So I'll try to not answer chat questions during the presentation, but I'll try to look at them and then answer most of them.
We will correct them for you, and I will ask you afterwards, Johan.
Okay. Oh, that's even better. Yeah, that's even better. Thanks. So that means I can actually close the chat here. So the stack, the stack. Yesterday we mainly talked about JavaFX applications and JavaFX libraries. Oh, I realized I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Johan Vos, co-founder from of Gluon. I've been working with Java since 1995. Co-ported Java to Linux, and I'm currently the co-lead of OpenJFX. So together with Kevin Rushford from Oracle, I'm leading the JavaFX core development. So the stack. Yesterday we talked about JavaFX applications and the number of libraries, and you will see more JavaFX libraries today. And at the very bottom of the stack, we have the hardware and the operating system, which is most often said to be desktop, but it can also be mobile and embedded. And in between those, we have the JavaFX platform. So the JavaFX platform, and that is what we will talk about in this session, the JavaFX platform makes sure that the JavaFX libraries, the ones that have been created by people talking yesterday, can use the hardware capabilities of the devices. And the JavaFX platform makes it possible that all those JavaFX applications run on desktops, embedded devices, mobile devices, and so. And it's a huge oversimplification, but in general, we can divide the JavaFX platform into 3 different layers. On top of it, you have the JavaFX APIs, and those are the APIs that the JavaFX developer is using. Those are the APIs that JavaFX framework developers are using to create libraries, and so this is what the end developer is using. At the very bottom, we have the low-level rendering system and the windowing systems. And these are, of course, hardware specific. For example, on Windows, we currently use Direct3D for rendering. On Linux, we use OpenGL, and we use GTK for rendering, but for the windowing toolkit. but we could also use different windowing implementations. We could use different rendering approaches. We can use software rendering and so. But the important part is that this is totally hidden for the end developer or even for the library developer. The internal implementation, which is the middle layer, makes sure that the JavaFX APIs that are used by the developers are platform independent, rendering independent, and windowing independent. And that is actually, it's pretty hard because we try to, well, and I think we succeed in keeping the JavaFX APIs platform independent, backward compatible, and without performance regressions. But we have to deal with changes at a lower level, and that is not an easy job. And that is actually the core mission of what we are doing with the OpenJFX project in the JavaFX platform. So OpenJFX is the name for the code repository and the project that has the JavaFX code. So the 3 layers that you see here are implemented in the OpenJFX project, which is on GitHub. So that was the technical stack. There's also an ecosystem and a stack that also shows remuneration based on money and based on likes. Again, on top we have the JavaFX applications. Those are created by employees inside companies, by individuals or consultants or consulting companies. They typically make use of open source libraries and commercial libraries created by companies and individuals. And in the end, those use the OpenJFX code, so the JavaFX distributions. And that one is created by and maintained by Gluon, Oracle, and a number of individuals. Now, if you look at the rewarding, I'm extremely, it's really motivating for me that we get lots of likes. I mean, not a Facebook likes or so, but I feel that our work is more often than not appreciated. And we sometimes get nasty questions, sometimes valid and sometimes invalid, but in general, we get lots of appreciation. The consultants that are developing applications, they typically do that for customers that don't want to show off with the applications, but they get more money. It makes sense. But what we should not forget is that creating and especially maintaining that lower layer is very resource intensive. And we try to, well, and I think, again, we succeed in maintaining a high quality with JavaFX. But it also means that we have to spend lots of time and resources on it. And that does cost money. And if we don't get money from doing consulting, we need to get money from other areas. And therefore, we have with Gluon, we have the JavaFX long-term support, which you can subscribe to. For the smaller companies, it's if you have 1 or 2 developers, it's $900 a year or 800 euros. And you can subscribe at that URL. And doing so, you will get some benefits. I will briefly talk about it later. But it's important to stress the impact of this, because the more customers that we have that buy long-term support from us, the more resources we can invest in the core development. And that is actually a pretty open mechanism of developing JavaFX. It is developed based on customer interest and not because of a strategic decision by a company. We know, for example, Google is very well known for creating many products because they have some strategy, and then they suddenly ditch a product because it doesn't fit in their strategy anymore. With OpenJFX, it is different. As long as there is interest, and as long as there's an ecosystem, we will always be able to fund the core development. And it's going well, but I want to increase that. And therefore, I think that message is extremely important. We will not ask any money from developers who want to create something as a hobby, or who want to create an open source project, or do something in useful in open source without benefiting from it. So that's totally fine. But I think my main message is, and I think it's a valid request, if you somehow make money because of what we do in OpenJFX, it would be nice if you can somehow contribute something back, and that something back can be code documentation or financial support with the long-term support packages. So years ago, I used to be ashamed for talking about this, but I'm not anymore, because I know that technology and business go hand in hand. And if we want to have a valid business, and if we want to have a healthy ecosystem, then it's important that somehow that ecosystem can be funded, and that all parties can benefit from it, so that it's a win-win, not that one party does the work and the other reap the benefits. So what is Gluon doing? So as I said, I'm the co-lead of OpenJFX. We are a major contributor to JavaFX. A major contributor means that we create JBS, so bug issues, pull requests, we commit code, review code. Reviewing is actually pretty resource intensive. It takes more time actually than committing. And important, we build and we distribute JavaFX. So as of JavaFX 11, Oracle does not distribute it anymore, but Gluon does. And the fact that many people don't even know that it's Gluon and not Oracle anymore is, to me, an indication that that transition went pretty smooth. So we distribute SDKs or JMods. Twitter. Why did I write Twitter there? That should have been Maven or Gradle artifacts. That's probably because when I was typing this, I said, oh yeah, I should not forget to send something on Twitter, and then I typed Twitter instead of Maven/Gradle artifact. Oh, I'm pretty worried about what else is going to be on these slides. So if one of my colleagues is listening, please have a look at my slides before I say stupid things. We also maintain and distribute SceneBuilder. We got some questions about it. I will come back to that later. SceneBuilder is, I don't have to explain that to you, but the tool that most people are using to develop applications. Oh yeah, and just to make sure that I don't forget it, SceneBuilder is very popular. We keep track of the downloads of SceneBuilder. So let me have a look at twice a day we get the numbers. And so the last number that I got, and so this is really honest, at 6 a.m. I got a message that over the past 12 hours, there were 764 new activations of SceneBuilder. So that's in 12 hours. And so we get that message twice a day. So I leave it up to the mathematicians in the audience to calculate how many downloads of SceneBuilder. Well, so these are activations. So these are not just simply downloading. This is really starting it and clicking at least somewhere or so. Or so SceneBuilder is extremely popular still. So we make sure that it keeps working. The other thing we do, and it's extremely well, especially energy consuming. It's we're fixing broken messages. We're cleaning up trash, and we are reassuring the industry that JavaFX is a valid technology for client development. And Wolfgang said it very nice and transparent. So I'm actually pleased by that message. So I wrote it down what I said 10 minutes ago. Where we are now with JavaFX today, we are in a much better position than 5 years ago. And it has been a very hard journey where we lost many people. And that is sad but true. And it does not make much sense to blame people or companies for the lost years that we had. But there's definitely damage being done about 5 years ago when Oracle disinvested in JavaFX and send out cryptic messages that maybe were clear for their legal and marketing department, but not at all for developers, not at all for the industry. And many people were claiming that JavaFX would be dead soon. And the number one question that we got over the past 5 years, at least in the beginning of those years, was, oh, but I thought JavaFX was dead. I thought that Oracle killed it. And I begged Oracle many times, please make a statement that JavaFX is not dead. But then it didn't happen. There never was some real official communication that was clear and widely understood by the industry. It was more something like, yeah, we prefer not to talk about it. And then if you look at the other slide that Wolfgang showed yesterday about the last official message from Oracle was that JavaFX 8 support is extended. That's nice. And what about JavaFX 11? Well, the great thing is that at this moment, I think we succeeded, and we, that is the JavaFX community, we succeeded in explaining that JavaFX is much bigger than Oracle. And JavaFX is about much more than about the business model of Oracle. So it is something that is created by a whole ecosystem with customers, library vendors, and individuals, and many different smaller companies. And Oracle is still very active in the JavaFX ecosystem because they're contributing. So Kevin Rushford, my co-lead of the OpenJFX team, is an excellent co-lead, and I'm extremely happy with the technical support that Oracle is giving, and with the technical work that Oracle is still doing in JavaFX and in OpenJFX. But it really took lots of energy from not only me, not only the Gluon people, but I bet that many people in the audience here heard the same question. Hey, but Oracle killed JavaFX, and we didn't get a message from Oracle about that JavaFX was still alive and in good hands. And so yeah, that's a pity. But well, I think we came out stronger. So that actually summarizes what I mean with keep the light burning. I think we managed with Gluon and the wider community, we managed to show that JavaFX is still alive and still has its place. So what else is Gluon doing? So the things that we were doing on the previous slide show what we are doing in the open. So what are we doing to make money? So we have this JavaFX 11 long-term support. So typically the JavaFX releases go with a major release. For example, we will soon be at 16. And then we have 2 follow-up releases with security patches, 16.01, 16.02, and then we move to 17. And don't ask me anything about 16 anymore at that moment. But there's a long-term support version, which is JavaFX 11. And so we had 11.01 and 11.02. But then for companies that don't want to move to 12 and to 13 every 6 months, they can buy JavaFX 11 long-term support from us. And we will give them builds of 11.03, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be out next month or a few weeks later. And that release, those releases contain security patches, bug fixes, and selected features. As part of that support, so customers who are subscribed to our JavaFX long-term support, they can file issues with us, and we will make sure that those issues come into JBS so that they are valid bugs on the roadmap of OpenJFX, and they have access to the core committers from Gluon that are active in the OpenJFX community. And also our customers determine which bug fixes or features we backport to 11, and we create dedicated versions and so on. The other thing that we're doing with Gluon is, well, Gluon Mobile. It's been mentioned a few times. Yes, JavaFX runs on mobile, and that is then using Gluon Mobile. I will briefly talk about it, not too long, because this is more a JavaFX keynote, and mobile is just one part of the whole JavaFX story. But we will have more information about mobile specific and embedded specific with Gluon in the near future. So Gluon Mobile allows you to create nice looking mobile applications written in Java and JavaFX. It's the latest Java, the latest JavaFX, and it's compiled ahead of time to native applications for the mobile devices. So it's not running in a browser. It's not using some hybrid solution. It's real pure Java natively implemented. And then we have some tools like Gluon Maps, Ignite, Gluon Connect. And another product that we have is Gluon Cloud Link, where we connect client applications to the cloud, taking into account that client connections may drop, or that real-time synchronization between applications, mobile devices or desktop devices and cloud instances is possible. And actually, and that is also nicely adding to what Wolfgang said, Gluon Cloud Link was actually our first product. Or at least one of the first ideas. And well, especially Hendrik Ebbers will remember DataFX, where I started with a synchronization protocol between JavaFX clients and cloud, so that the JavaFX clients could synchronize data with each other. And that was very, very long time ago. We presented at Java 1 1875 or so, I think, and that was actually one of the core reasons why we created Gluon. But then Oracle dropped support for JavaFX on mobile, so we had to take over JavaFX on mobile. So we got a bit distracted, but it's very nice. So that's why we also did Gluon Mobile. And then Oracle even disinvested more in Java in general and JavaFX in particular. So that's why we had to invest in JavaFX. And that's why I was asked to become the co-lead of OpenJFX. So we had to go 2 steps back to build a solid foundation. And the solid foundation, I think it's more or less in place now with OpenJFX. We need to make it better. We need to make it grow. But fortunately, we can build on top of that solid foundation. I typically represent this with a pyramid where we wanted to work on Cloud Link, but we had to make the mobile foundation better, and then the OpenJFX foundation. So, and now that we have the solid foundation, I wonder if that's it's actually the first time that I do gestures in an online presentation. But well, JavaFX has support for gestures, so why not? We do some consulting too in order to fund our development. But so the more long-term support we can sell, the less consulting we have to do. So yes, why are we doing this? Because well, someone has to do it. I mean, yeah, and we like it, and we think it is extremely valid. And the idea of Java on the client is really one of the root ideas of Java. And so one of the biggest supporters that we have is James Gosling himself, who considered that as an embedded is really where Java has huge potential, and it's created for that, and it should not be. And there, I think I disagree with what Hendrik said yesterday, but I think I agree with what was added before I started talking. It should not be a niche market. It should be a huge market. But that can especially happen if we move into mobile, embedded, IoT, edge. All those devices are going to send data to cloud systems. So it is extremely important. And it's not just a fancy UI toolkit that wants to compete with Flutter or whatever. It is really part of a bigger plan and end-to-end stack and an end-to-end ecosystem. So how is JavaFX doing? Fine, thank you. So this is again open, transparent, and honest. The number of downloads, the number of unique IPs that downloaded the JavaFX base module from Maven Central over the past 12 months. And you can see there in October, so the last month where we have numbers from, we are at about 140,000 unique IP addresses a month that downloaded this module. So the real number is, of course, higher because companies often have just a single IP. And yeah, and the downloads are, of course, in the millions because you don't only download JavaFX base, you download other you download JavaFX graphics controls and so on, and you may download different versions, for example. And we come from less than 70,000 last year, so that number doubled, and it keeps doubling year over year. So this is the Maven Central reporting central stats. So I can't go back more than 1 year, but I think Wolfgang showed this slide last year at the JavaFX Day. So if we and I probably still have it as a screenshot, so we can concat it, but it's going very well. So we see that the number of downloads keeps increasing. There's an interesting pattern that we see every year, and that's a peak in March and November, followed by a dip towards January and June, July. That's something that we see every year. I think it's even more pronounced since the well, the releases that happen in March and September. But even the general interest in JavaFX seems to be higher in those months. So clearly, there's lots of technical interest in JavaFX. I stress a number of times that JavaFX is a community-driven project. So it is, and one of the main reasons why I keep stressing this is that if it's a community-driven project, then it makes no sense that someone says, well, Oracle killed it, because not a single company can kill a community-driven project. And that is actually well, one of the strengths of JavaFX. So OpenJFX.io is a site that's created by Gluon that just gives the very, very basics. How can you download and how can you get Hello World running with Maven and Gradle? It is open. The content is on GitHub. And we very much would welcome people that would spend more time collaborating to this. But it's, and I want to be honest about it, drive-by contributions won't work. So what is not going to work is if you think, well, I have a great idea because I can do a list of some nice frameworks, so I will create a pull request and then hopefully they accept it. No, because that only makes sense if you're going to maintain that list, because the worst thing that can happen is that the site is outdated. And we spent some time in automating this website so that if JavaFX 16 is being released, that we don't have to do lots of manual work. But because that is important, the moment that JavaFX 16 is released, if 1 month later you still see JavaFX 15, then that website is outdated. And creating something is easy, but maintaining is more difficult, and it really demands a long-term commitment. And that's not always possible for everyone. So next part, what are the plans? What are we going to do with OpenJFX? Well, if you look at this stack from the beginning again, our plans, at least the basic plans, are pretty boring. What are we going to do? We're going to make sure that we don't break things. We're going to make sure that the JavaFX libraries keep working. And we are also trying to provide first-class support for new hardware operating systems drivers. Yes, M1 is a part of that plan, for example. We will fix bugs. We will add features if they are in JBS, so bugs, the Java bug system tool. New features should first be discussed on the OpenJFX development mailing list, and then if there's more or less a plan, a JBS issue can be created, and then a pull request can be created. That's how it works. I'll explain that in the next slide. We typically, with Gluon, we typically work on issues that are entered by our Gluon JavaFX 11 long-term support customers. And that makes sense. I think they pay for access to us, and therefore we rather first work on issues entered by them or at least by a number of them. If we see that we have 7 customers that all demand a specific issue to be fixed, then that is a good indication to us that there's a valid business interest in there. So that sounds not very spectacular about future plans, but I think it's important that we keep OpenJFX as boring as possible, because the real exciting things are typically created on top of it. But we have to make sure that others can create really exciting things on top of it. And that means that we have to make sure that the performance is great, is really top class, because then you can do very cool things. And in order to create top class performance, yeah, we need to do lots of boring work at the level of shader implementation or yeah, real low level support. So what can you do if you want to have something in OpenJFX? There are at least 2 options that you have. The first option is explained on this slide. Second option is explained on the second slide. So the project leads, as I said, Kevin and myself, we overview the issues, the pull requests, the discussions, and the general strategy of the platform, where we are in total agreement with each other that quality is one of the most important assets. And we are Java. JavaFX is Java, so we align with the core principles of OpenJDK, which means if something is hip, that's nice, but don't rush to get a hip feature rushed into a release. Make sure that the quality is high. Java and JavaFX are used in very critical areas where being hip is not the #1 requirement. That does not mean that we want to be old-fashioned. At the contrary, but we have to make sure that the quality is high, and that's what Kevin and myself are really gatekeepers for. If you want to do something, you first have to well, create an issue. Well, actually, and the real first step is to discuss this on the mailing list, the OpenJFX dev mailing list. But then, if there's an issue, a bug or a feature, and you have an idea about the solution, you can raise a pull request on GitHub. Just a pull request is not enough. You need to explain how you are going to test and maintain it. And again here, and this is something that Mark Reinhold keeps iterating as well for OpenJDK, we don't want drive-by contributions. Suppose that you have a real smart algorithm that will speed up the layout phase by an order of magnitude. That's nice, but you need to explain how you plan to maintain that, because we don't want bit-rotten code in the repository. So it should be very clear, what are you changing, what are you introducing, and how can that be maintained going forward. And that is one of the reasons why Java is still valid after 25 years. Backward compatibility is extremely important. Fortunately, there are many tests in JavaFX, but performance testing is always difficult because there are so many scenarios. And therefore, what we always recommend is that if you have something new to add, do that in the beginning of a cycle. So now is the moment to get something in JavaFX 16 before we are at the ramp down phase 1. We also distribute lots of a number of early access versions. So I think we're currently at JavaFX 16 early access 4 or so. And I highly recommend developers using those early access versions. Those are not unstable, untested versions. They are very well tested, and they should be of a high quality. And if you use them during development, you will detect issues much faster. If you run into an issue with an early access build, that's sort of a red flag for us. So therefore, it's highly recommended to use early access builds. I also recommend if you're doing development, use early access build. If you're using JavaFX in production, use a long-term supported build like the 11. You can use 15, 15.01, 15.02, but then you have to upgrade every 6 months to a new version, and those are not officially supported longer than 6 months. The other option that you can do for doing things that you can follow for getting something into OpenJFX is if you're a JavaFX 11 long-term support customers, you can create an SSCCE, a short self-contained correct example for us that shows the issue. Gluon engineers are then verifying it, creating a JBS issue, and pushing it into in JBS, and we will follow up on that status. And we will then we don't guarantee that we will fix that immediately, so it's on the roadmap somehow, depending on what other customers want as well. And we can also do it if it's important to the customers. We can do that immediately, and we have a number of customers that ask us to do it immediately. Then that's of course then a time and material project, but that also allows you to to get something done in OpenJFX. So that's a commercial thing. Apart from that, we and I think I don't have to stress that anymore. We do lots of work for free, and actually everything we do here is for free as well for the other users. But if you want to decide which we work on first, then you need to be a customer. So getting a bit more exciting, the new directions that we will follow are related to actually that bottom part of the stack, hardware, OS, desktop, mobile, embedded. So we want now that JavaFX on the desktop is, I think, in safe water again, we want to expand again to mobile, to embedded, IoT, edge, to the devices that Java was designed for. And so those are the directions that we will explore, and that we're actually currently exploring, and that will get more focus in the near future. For example, beyond desktop. Beyond desktop is, for example, embedded. So this is, I think, a Raspberry Pi device with a touch screen. This is mobile. So this is the devops mobile scheduler. Yesterday, I showed 2 mobile applications, SpaceFX and that golf application. So that is already working, but we will keep improving it. It will get more attention. This is not for now. Sorry. How are we going to achieve all of this on other devices? Well, embedded is often considered to be hard because it is resource constrained and performance is suboptimal, and it's often said that Java is slow. And while I disagree with that, there's at least progress being made, and that is if you can use native code on embedded, targeting the real specific hardware operating system driver, and so it can go much faster. And actually, this is not an option. This is a requirement for iOS. We cannot run Java code directly on iOS. We need to run native code. But how do we get there? How can we execute native code starting from Java code? Well, what we need to do is we need to compile the Java bytecode into native code. And we need to do that ahead of time because it is, for example, on iOS not allowed to do that at runtime. This is typically what Hotspot is doing. It will at runtime compile some of the Java code to native code. The native code itself, so the code that's being invoked via JNI, for example, the Java core libraries and the JavaFX core libraries use a bunch of native code that has, of course, to be compiled for that specific device as well. And the great thing, and I think it's one of the biggest innovations in Java over the past 25 years, and that's GraalVM. With GraalVM native image, it is possible to compile bytecode into a number of native code. So the Java bytecode will be compiled into native iOS code, for example, or native code that runs on an embedded device. It still needs to be combined with the native, the real native code that's part of Java and JavaFX, and it requires static libraries because we need to create a static build, and that is something that we do with the in the OpenJDK Mobile project, of which I'm the project lead. But everything combined here, and all the pieces are now ready. We have an end-to-end system that allows you to create a Java application with JavaFX for the user interface and use Maven or Gradle for declaring your dependencies. And then with Gluon Substrate, which is accessible via a single IDE plugin, it will then create, it can run on desktop, Windows, Linux, and so on. It can run on desktop as a native image. So then it's compiled ahead of time to native code. And it can run on mobile or embedded devices as well. So what Gluon Substrate is doing with these plugins, it will pull in the required versions, static builds of the Java SDK and the JavaFX SDK, which comes, so the source code is 100% the same as the source code of OpenJFX on Windows, for example. And it will also pull in the GraalVM native image AOT compiler, or at least you download that and it will be invoked by Gluon Substrate. And you can then also, if you want, add more Gluon-specific products, components, APIs, and so. And the result is a wide variety of targets. So you can run on desktop, you can run on embedded, you can run on mobile. So on mobile, for example, the JavaFX code that you write for desktop applications works on iOS and Android devices too. We support Java 11 and beyond, so that means that the very latest Java works on those devices. And I really have to stress that because we are not using the Android APIs on Android. So you're really using the Java APIs. The whole Java virtual machine is compiled ahead of time as well. Well, at least the parts that you need. So they're all bundled into a single application. So that's really Java that is bundled. And the size is doable. So it's not really bigger than the average Android or iOS application. Rendering on mobile is typically done using OpenGL ES. We're also using OpenGL on JavaFX, so that's on desktop. So that's the same rendering pipeline. With standard JavaFX, it looks like what you see on the left, and with Gluon Mobile, you can make it much nicer with more mobile-specific controls, and that's what you see on the right. But as I said, I'm not going into details about Gluon Mobile, but if you're interested, follow us at Gluon, and we will talk more about it.
Johan?
So 2 more things. I know.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say like 2 or 3 more minutes, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so 2 or 3 more things. On embedded, I see that there are many 89 messages in the chat. So
we have a lot of questions. I already collected them. That's why we need to come to an end, because we really have a lot of good questions for you.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Good, great. I'll hurry with this now. So on embedded, and this is getting really really hot. Embedded. On embedded, you have different configurations. Even the Raspberry Pi 4, you can run that in 32-bit or 64-bit Ubuntu, Raspbian. You can use X11 as window manager or frame buffer with DRM. And what we do now with Gluon is we provide specific bundles that are targeted towards a specific configuration. And if we use Gluon Substrate with a native image, then you do not need anything else. So you don't need a JDK for your embedded device anymore, because you will get a native image, a real native embedded application without the need of the JDK to be installed on every device. So that advantage that we saw in mobile, we're also bringing that to embedded and to desktop. And this is especially interesting in for automotive and embedded areas where actually the bulk of Gluon engineers come from that embedded world. So I'm extremely excited that finally we can really go to well, real Java on embedded, thanks to Core VM native image. And so the last thing I want to talk about, and we will do a blog post about that, I think in 1 minute, I think it's also scheduled, is that we have support for GitHub Actions now. And Frank Delport had a nice blog post about it at Fuji, where you can get an example on how you can easily go from your Java code, the Gluon plugin, into an application on iOS and on Android. So using GitHub Actions makes it easier. And finally, all those questions that we got from, I don't have a Mac, can I build for iOS? And so, well, with GitHub Actions, it becomes much easier to create different builds and to manage the flow better. So yeah, finally, what are we doing with Gluon and what are the plans with JavaFX? We will keep committing code, reviewing code. We lead the project, we make build releases, we make it work on a mobile and embedded, we maintain the plugins, we maintain the tools, we work on documentation, and we do marketing and evangelization. And we are working on JavaFX 11. We are working on Substrate and mobile, and we're working on a Cloud Link. So I got a number of questions.
Yeah.
And probably.
Yeah, I already see some questions that were asked today too on your slides.
Okay, I'll rush over them, and I will not spend more than 30 seconds per question. But if there's something more important, I can, of course, have more time. So missing features in JavaFX 3D, standard answer there is it would be nice if they are first in an incubation project like FXYZ, for example. So features in general, same with table view too. If there's a prototype in a library, then it's more likely that we can do that in JavaFX as well. Otherwise, there was going to be lots of discussion. So if the preparational work can be done, that's fine. Funding of contributors, that's a very, very valid question. I want individual contributors to OpenJFX to be funded as well. But that really needs a change of mind from customers, consulting companies, and so on, that if you leverage their work, you somehow need to fund them. And I don't believe that the individual funding of contributors is really fair, because if you then work on something boring, it's less likely to get funding. So we really need to get more appreciation for people and companies that are working on the lower levels. JavaFX versus Flutter, that can be very fast. JavaFX is, yeah, go on.
No? Can we move the questions to the first break? Because we are already over the time where the next presentation should have started. And afterwards, we have a 15 minutes break, and we have this slide from you and several questions from the audience. So is it possible that we just move that to the first coffee break?
I'll probably won't be here at the first break anymore, but I'll try to be back. But
okay,
give me 3 minutes, and this is finished.
Okay.
So JavaFX versus Flutter. JavaFX is Java and Flutter is not Java. There are 12 million Java developers, and Java is not controlled by Google. JavaFX job creation. There are many, if we make JavaFX huge, there are many things that can be done. And I especially think about Edge IoT, making JavaFX relevant in science and for society. Modernized version of desktop APIs, native OS integration. Yes, that's important. Therefore, bug issues need to be created, need to be discussed. So make it happen. Make yourself vocal and heard on the OpenJFX dev mailing list. What is needed to turn a non-JavaFX dev into JavaFX? Again, here the answer is Java. If you want to have security, if you want to have lots of frameworks and a whole ecosystem available, then Java is the best choice, and JavaFX is Java. Will Panama and other features affect JavaFX? Currently, JavaFX requires Java 11, and we try not to break that. On the other hand, if there's a compelling reason to use new features, we will consider that and maybe create different flavors or so. Additional video codecs, yes, definitely, we need that. That needs to be worked on. Real-time synchronization of data, that's what we're doing in Cloud Link. CSS update, it's often asked. It should be done. It depends on people who either want to quote it or want to pay for it. M1, discussed that. Scene Builder, it's very popular. We wish that we could work more on it. So far, it seems to be, well, customer seems to be happy with it. So if someone wants to fund the development, we would happy to invest more in it, but we absolutely keep maintaining it because this is the #1 tool that JavaFX developers use. Auto update, I think that's not part of the JavaFX core, but it's been discussed outside JavaFX. I think that's the first batch of questions that I could answer.
Okay, great. So as said, we corrected all the questions, and then if you are back maybe in a later break, then we can have a discussion, or maybe even at the panel or Q&A at the end of the conference. Okay.
Yep.
Good. So thank you, Johan.